Alright, I got this dirty old thing on the bench and we're gonna see what's left of it and what we can make out of it. It's pretty rusty and dirty. That's about the way everything I start with goes. So let's see what happens. Those things never come out like that. That is awesome. So easy. So I've got the two spring perches cut off. They're in fairly rough shape. This one here, you can see there's some rust up there. I'm going to get this piece out of here so it's flat for the spring to mount to, and then we'll test fit the spring and see how much, if any, we need to chop out of there. And then give it a good clean up. We're gonna weld a new rod in there. I might look at maybe even coming up with some kind of offset that maybe will drop the control arm mount down a little bit. We'll consider that. We'll look at that too. We'll try and pull this motor mount off, see if it comes off as easy as this one did. That's usually what happens. Awesome. So I'm going to dig at some of the dirt here with a screwdriver. Maybe start hitting it with the wire wheel, flapper disc, and see how much of this rug we can get off of there. So now that some of the gunk is gone, I found quite a bit of rust. You can see there's those holes here. There's a hole right on top as well. My plan was to just get a 1-inch nut, weld it in the middle, call it done. I think with this rust here and worried about how weak the top of this is, I'm just going to order myself a top plate from All-Star. They make those nice round plates. They're good thick steel. They come with the 1-inch nut in them. So I'm just going to cut this out with the plasma cutter and put that new top in after it shows up. So I got one side just about fully prepped. It's not the greatest polish job. Once I stick it on there and actually find out where I'm going to be welding it, I'll do a bit more polish around those areas to make sure I get a good weld. We busted the top right out of it, make room for our new top plate that'll go in there with the weight jack hole right in it, and then I'll be able to weld it all in and make the top control arm mount.
So I've had a moment of clarity and realized that you can't be cheap and lazy. That's pretty much one or the other, and I'm generally more cheap than lazy. So instead of buying the prefab top plates for the spring pockets, I've just started making one. So I've got one kind of cut out here. It fits all right. I'm gonna tack it into place and then we'll cut in our own, just a 1-inch nut. Not that the All-Star top plates that I was going to use are very much. I think they're $15 a piece. So you change that Canadian, and it's about 85, and I'd be looking at, I don't know, probably, we'll say $50 to get them here to my place. So instead of spending $50, I've probably got a couple 1-inch nuts. I haven't even looked yet. I've got some 1/8 plate kicking around, and that'll do the job for us. So that's a start. Really tough metal to weld to. You can see some nice popcorns here. But it's really tough metal to weld to. The old spring pocket, it's pretty old and thin in a lot of spots. But we'll get her. So I've just bolted the stub here, the little spring pocket, back onto the front chassis where it's going to ultimately be mounted. The reason I did that is I want to I got to place this. It's got to be in the same location as the factory, so I just need to make sure that when it's on there, I can get that nut and bolt, or get the upper control arm mount and bolt through, as well as making sure this is parallel with the frame rail, and then it's back to stock, not stock. So I've got my upper control arm mount welded in place. I've got my 1-inch nut. I've traced out exactly where I'm going to put it. Blast it out with the plasma, drop it in there, and weld it in place too. So I got one side done. I just slapped the upper control arm on there to kind of mock it up. Our weight jack bolt is installed. We got our new top plate. Our control arm mount is installed. I know some of you guys are probably thinking I could have gone and spent some time and some research and figured out what angle, if I could have rotated that and all kinds of stuff. To be honest, first off, the rules say stock location, and stock location on this happens to be right over these bolt hole flanges and parallel with the frame. So that's what I did. It's in the exact same spot. Could I have gotten away with maybe tweaking it one way or another, or up or down and all that good stuff? Probably. But I just rather not draw that attention to myself and go through that, whether it's legal or not, to be honest. This is as close to stock as it's going to get. This is something, minus the weight jack, that if I had a streetcar with that problem and those spring pockets were that rusted out, I would have done the exact same thing. I'd be perfectly comfortable with this on the street. So there it is. The only thing I got left to do is I'm going to mount the lower control arm next time, make sure I got enough clearance, and then I'll box off the back on the bottom, or if I need to bring it out before I box it out, we'll do that. But for the time being, the top half is done. I'm happy with it, and we'll get started on a second one.
never very good in art class. So I got the second top plate welded up. I think this stub was in a little worse shape than the other one was. It's basically just a series of tacks all the way around to try and keep from blowing out the metal that's really thin on the stub itself. All I got left is I've tried to grind out some of the areas that got contaminated, and I'll try and fill those in with some proper welds. So I've got both stubs mounted in the car, and I've got a lower control arm placed in each one. Just to make sure, you can see here the control arm kind of protrudes out the back, so I'm going to have to cap that off. But otherwise, everything rotates as it should. I'll just make peace. I'll probably come down straight off of here and out, and then it gives me kind of a square surface to weld my cross member to when I get to that point. Well, that gives you guys an idea of what I got to do in order to finish this all up yet. I've got one of the little bracket pieces started. Got one more side to do. I'll just get it tacked together on the car. Then we'll pull it off, put it on the bench and do all the welding, and then do this side all over again. Anyways, next time you see this thing, hopefully all the fab work is done on the two stubs, and we'll be ready to weld it right to the frame and start on the cross member. Thanks for watching.